This is the Next Bite of Life podcast, the place to be to hear personal stories from expats, digital nomads, and everybody else taking their next bite of life. Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Next Bite of Life podcast. My name is Kem. My guest today is Paul Kennedy, and I'm so anxious to talk to him because it's all about food and Asia. Say hello to everyone, Paul.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Kem. Thanks for having me today. Greetings from
No,
Hanoi.
thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I've been dying to talk to you.
Likewise.
And, you have a very interesting history from what I've read and talked to you about. So you're originally from Virginia. So tell me, where are you now? You said Hanoi already, right? So how does a guy from Virginia end up in Hanoi?
So I grew up outside of DC in Northern Virginia, and then I went to school in the Carolinas. After that, I went up to New York, and then it was New York to the traveling phase of life. And
Was this?
yeah,
Go ahead.
no, it's I didn't plan any of it. I thought it was going to be a vacation in Greece, but ended up being I've been here almost 4 years in Vietnam.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So you were living, the last place you lived in America was New
New
York?
York City. Yeah. Last place.
So why would you live such a huge city and say, I wanted to, well, obviously you said it was for a sabbatical of sorts. So you left New York thinking, well, I'm going to come back?
I left New York for a 10-day vacation on my friend's boat in Greece. It sounds like I have some highbrow friends, but it wasn't like that. They were just inspirational. It happened to be in Greece. It was one of those trips. So I thought that was going to be my birthday trip. When I left, I said, I think I might stay a little longer. I don't have plans, but I might extend the vacation. That was the goal, was I might do this. I might see this person. I might travel here. But I had no plan, and I thought I would return. But
Yeah.
I clearly did not.
Would you say traveling was something that was in your blood? Like you always dreamt of traveling, or was it just something that kind of like you grew up and everybody else was traveling, you thought, okay, sure, I could do that?
No, I never had a passport until the week I left.
Wow. That really is amazing.
Yeah, so I did not understand traveling. That's what happened.
Mhm.
That's where the disconnect was. And that's what I kind of want to inspire people to do. Yeah,
Okay.
I used to think vacationing was traveling, and I never really took a like to it. I didn't understand the big difference. And now that even when I left, I thought I was going on vacation, and I did, but it turned into traveling. There's that difference. There's the semantics of it. But now that I understand traveling, that's, I think, the point when I really decided not to go back. And so this is now my home base, but I still travel.
Yeah. Do you find that, it's true what they say? I've always thought a lot of people that are sort of stuck at home or dream about it, they really don't have an idea of what they're missing unless they actually go out there and see what the world is like beyond their little backyard and stuff.
There's no way to understand it. There's no way. They say you'll learn more from traveling 1,000 miles and reading 1,000 books, and it's so true. Because it's a crash course in empathy to understand the vast differences in cultures, and then to be able to realize how similar they all are.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to experience it. You can't do it through reading.
No.
You have
or
to
watching YouTube.
Certainly, there is no way. You can watch as many documentaries, read as many books as you want. It's impossible until you're right in the thick of things. And by traveling, I mean, go by yourself and go with the intent. Go with your being curious and the intent to learn.
Yes.
not staying at the Marriott, not using your
Yeah.
travel miles and your,
All inclusive,
yeah, not
right?
staying at a resort. There's
No, it's funny.
there's a
It's
what's that? Go ahead.
no, I was just saying it's just funny how people think like going. I'm like, have you been to Jamaica? Yes, we stayed at an all-inclusive
Yeah.
resort for like 7 days. We didn't come out. I'm like, okay, you know, check that one off the
Yeah,
list.
you go with the same people that you live with or are friends with to a different place,
Yeah,
staying in the same resort, whereas
yeah,
you're eating nachos and drinking margaritas with pre-made, margarita mix. Um, but there's nothing wrong with vacationing
no,
at all. But the vacation is supposed to be a break away from your normal routine. The traveling is when you want to and you will learn.
yes,
So there's a big
yes.
difference. But you have to travel. There's no other way to explain it unless you do it.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time because they say things like, and I'm sure they say the same things to you. I would love to travel like you do, but there's always a but. You know,
Yes.
it's so
Yes.
expensive. It's so this, and I'm like, you don't have to even travel past America, say, per se. You can go to the next state and find something different. There's so many beautiful states and cities, within your own country. You can even go and start there and you'll see. And then you can extend it. But there are obviously ways because you did it, I did it, a whole bunch of people have done it where they travel. And so it's something doable for most people.
Right.
Not everybody, but most
Right.
people.
Right. Well, they're afraid of the unknown.
Yes.
That coupled with not understanding what you get out of it, of course you're going to make excuses.
Yeah.
So they're going to, anytime we're afraid of the unknown, we're going to make up an excuse. It's just an easy way out. So yes, they'll
Yep.
say, well, I have kids. Well, do you have a parents who can watch your kids for a
Yeah.
few weeks? Or
I know,
it's
really.
beneficial to you, which then
Yeah.
benefits them. It's also, if
Yeah.
the kids stay with someone else, that's beneficial for them to,
Yeah.
it helps them grow. And then they say
Yes.
money, and you'll counter with, but didn't you fly across the country to 2 weddings last year? And
Yeah, exactly.
didn't you take a
Oh, that's
vacation
different.
somewhere? Yeah, exactly. Well, I had to. And
Yeah.
living in New York, before New York, I was in Charleston, South Carolina. So a flight
Yeah.
from New York to Charleston was more expensive than a flight
Yes.
to Vietnam from New York.
Yes.
So, and this
Yeah.
definitely the hotel. I can stay in hotels for at least 2 weeks for the same price as one night
One flight.
in
Yeah.
New York or Charleston. You
Yeah.
know,
Imagine.
so
They have no idea.
it's not the kids, it's not the money. You can say safety. You can use
Yeah.
Natalie Holloway from Aruba and say, it's just not
Yeah.
great.
There's a million
Yeah,
excuses.
and that really happened, but you can't rest on, you can't single out accidents like that or not
Exactly.
tragedies, let's just say. Um,
Yeah, I always say fear is the mind killer. You can't stay and just be rooted in fear. You've got to go out there and I mean, it doesn't matter where you go, even at home, things can happen. So, you know?
when I was when I was working my way over to Vietnam and I was going to Turkey, and people were going, it's so unsafe there, don't do it.
Uh-huh.
And I go, really? What's so, I started buying into it. Well, what's so unsafe?
Yeah.
And they mentioned the airport bombing from a few years earlier.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking, you're telling me not to visit a country, not to explore because of something that happened at one location in the
Exactly.
entire country 2 to 3 years earlier.
Uh-huh.
Um, but
It's like
because they
no.
haven't traveled, they won't understand.
Exactly. But I'm like, what kind of things happen at home anyway? How often do you hear somebody going to work and getting killed randomly? I mean, it seems like things can happen there too. So it's like, it's a lot safer, at least I've found. A lot of the places I've been, we heard the same thing about Istanbul. Oh my God, you cannot go there. Blah, blah, blah. And we had the most wonderful 10 days. We found somebody who took us walking. I mean,
Yes,
we walked
yes.
miles and miles at night. It's one of the safest cities that we had ever been to, and we loved it. And we can't wait to go back. And it's like, you can't let fear hold you back.
I forget.
So I'm glad.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm glad when I see people like you traveling and, trying to let people know that you can't really. hold yourself back.
I forget what the website is. I think it's like a World Crime Index, and
Uh-huh.
every country I went to was safer than, say, Detroit or Chicago or Baltimore. Every city I went to was
Yeah.
so much safer than DC or New York. Or
Yeah.
yes, there's different degrees of crime. Um,
Yeah.
However, there's a lot of killings in those cities,
Exactly.
and random,
Exactly.
random. So yeah, you have to let fear go. You can't let
Yes.
fear rule your life.
So now let me take you back to Greece
Yes,
on this wonderful 10-day
yes.
vacation. So you got to Greece and you said to yourself, I think, Hanoi, Vietnam sounds great. Or did you go to other places from there?
Well, no, I did. Like I said, I didn't plan on doing anything. And then, so
Okay.
this was on my friend's boat. I had made inspiration the theme of the trip
Okay.
because it turns out when you try to make an international trip, you either invite everyone or you invite no one.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, do these people get along? I don't want these people. I don't want to be on a boat
Yeah.
for 10 days with this person. So I just said, look, these were friends that I knew from Charleston who moved to New York. They took this bold step. They adopted a child, and they were in the education system, and they sold their house and left the school system. They bought a 47-foot catamaran and decided to sail around the world, chartering their boat while
Mm,
teaching their kid the world. So I
nice.
said, inspiration is going to be my theme. I'll stay with them, see where it takes me, see what happens. So that's what I
Mhm.
did. And we stayed on their boat for 10 days, and they dropped me off literally in Santorini on the beach. And that's when I realized this is the time. I decided I either go back or keep going and see what happens. So how did Vietnam come along? I'd also never stayed in a hostel before,
Mhm.
and I stayed in my first hostel because I passed the sign. I said, okay, why not? Why not?
Uh-huh.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
Why not try it? See what it's like.
Yeah.
So the ball started rolling, and I ended up meeting someone at a hostel who was encouraging me to go to Chiang Mai in
Hmm.
Thailand because I was
Everybody was going to Shanghai,
I
right?
know. Well, this guy was a digital nomad, so I was
Uh-huh.
kind of picking his brain, going, what can I do? And he said every job translates into a nomadic life. And
Yeah.
he said, "What's your field?" And I said, "Hospitality." He goes, "Well, maybe not every field." I was like, "Well,
Mhm.
that's not very encouraging." So
Yeah,
anyway,
exactly.
he steered me towards, and some other people steered me towards Chiang Mai. So I worked my way over there. And when I got to Chiang Mai, I realized this is just all expats. This is the big event for the week. It was
Hmm.
live music. It was on bales of hay with Led Zeppelin and Grateful Dead and all American music. And
It was Little America.
yeah, it was. It
In-
was. During the day, no one's out because it was all digital. It was all digital nomads and expat teachers. And nighttime was, yeah, it was. I might as well have just been in some random city in the U.S.
yeah.
So that was an easy no. And
Yeah.
I just kept traveling because I realized this is the time. And I ended up in Vietnam. When I got to Vietnam, I realized there's so much to learn,
Yeah.
and I loved the vibe. And I ended up staying. I still had no plan, no agenda, but I
Yeah.
think that's when I finally realized I I need to find a way to make this work because
Yes.
this is what I should be
Because
doing.
the urge to stay was too strong. You didn't want to go back to the old way. And I think it's interesting that you said that about Chiang Mai because I've heard that from a lot of people that, went there and they were expecting something different because, you mentioned Thailand and it's like, oh, you got to go to Chiang Mai and everybody was there. And when my husband and I went to Bangkok,
Right,
everybody's like, oh, you've got to go.
right,
Chiang Mai is the
right.
best place and blah, blah, blah. And so we're like, oh, we'll try and go there. But then, we kept thinking about it like, because a friend of ours had also just moved there, an older woman,
Right.
and she was like, we got an apartment. We was excited because everybody told us it was wonderful.
Right.
And they lasted, I think, 35 days before they packed their bags and they're like, we cannot take this. It's basically just like you said. It was like it could have been in any place, in America. Just
And it's every city or town has something like that. Where I
Yeah.
am now, there's a place called Tejo, and a lot of
Hmm.
expats live there. You go there, and it's the same foods. My joke is
Yeah.
that if you're living in a place abroad that has a Taco Tuesday, you're not getting the most out of it. You know,
Uh-oh, now you've said it because we there's a restaurant here that now has a Taco
yeah,
Tuesday.
you need to. But you're in Spain. It's a little more accepted. It's more normal there to have a taco than it is in Vietnam.
That's true.
So yeah, it's a red flag. You're
Yeah.
not going to get the most out of it. So if you're in a place where all the menus are in English
Yes.
and it's English prices as well, you're
Yeah.
not also losing out on that aspect. But there's not a
Yeah.
single. You're not gaining what you could. You're not
Yeah.
receiving what everything that there is to be offered um, by living in or being surrounded by locals. It's
Yeah.
just a night and
But
day. So you're on vacation. You're on a work
yes.
vacation. You're an expat,
Yes.
and that's a different category. That's not what I want.
Yeah. So when you traveled, like you went, so you stayed in hostels and you try to get to know a place. Now, was Hanoi the first place that you stayed at, that you went to, or did you consider other places? What made you pick that particular city?
It's the Hanoi is the place that I consider. It's where I landed, and I knew I
Okay.
loved the vibe. The other
Yeah.
countries, I knew immediately I didn't want to stay there. I wanted to experience it. I wanted to travel there, but I knew I didn't want to live there. When I got to
Hmm.
Hanoi, I realized this was a place because there was so much culture.
Yeah.
Before I even checked into a hotel, I
Yeah.
immediately knew. And at one point, because I kept looping around the country,
Hmm.
and at one point I thought Ho Chi Minh in the South was going to be for me. But in retrospect, I realized I think I just felt more comfortable because it was a bigger city. So it was the
Okay.
most similar to New York.
Yeah.
But then in looping around again, Hanoi had the best mix, the overall mix,
Yeah.
because it had the culture. It still
That's
retained the
great.
culture and is a city. It's about the size of New York also, but it's
So it's
nothing
quite
like
big.
the West. It's not like the West.
What do you think of the city as a whole? I mean, you've met, obviously you like interacting with the locals and you're not into like the expat bubble
Right.
world. Do you feel that anyone who does that should kind of aim for the same, or would you say, well, if what you want is that bubble, then go for it? Or would you say don't bother unless you're willing to get to know the people?
Well, it depends on what your purpose is. If your intent is to, like I said, maximize what's being offered, then you have to step out of your comfort zone and you have to live outside of where the other expats live. You have to.
Yeah.
Now, I had someone I know, an expat, who asked me, who said, "Don't you feel lonely?" Because I live in it's all I'm pretty much the only American, the only Western here. Um,
Hmm.
he said, and I don't speak Vietnamese, and they don't speak
Hmm.
English.
Hmm.
And he said, "Don't you feel lonely?" I said, "No, no, not at
Yeah.
all. It's the reason I'm here is to experience. So I
Yes.
don't need to talk about go to a restaurant and watch a soccer game or
Yeah.
and I have a social life.
Yeah.
It's just the businesses and the people around me are Vietnamese.
Yeah.
So
No, I think that's a great way to live because, I mean, part of the whole point, like you said, of going to a new place is to experience. In my neighborhood, I'll tell you,
Taco Tuesday.
yeah, like maybe I live in the city of Valencia, but
All
like
right,
in a suburb that's basically all working class Spanish people.
right,
So I am like me and my husband. He speaks a little bit more Spanish than I do, and I'm taking classes.
right.
But one day I was walking the dog and I bumped into this guy and I said, "Oh, sorry." Like it just came out instinctively. And he was like, "You speak English." He was so happy to find somebody else's book. Because he's like, "I've been here with my girlfriend for like 4 years." Because you're the first person that I've seen that actually speaks, English
Right,
around
right.
here. So every time we see each other, we say hello. But we're both kind of comfortable in here. And I tell my friends, they're like, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, we live in this neighborhood." It's like, I don't even know where that is. And it's just like, I have to tell them, well, it's about a half an hour walk from here. It's like really close to like the City of Arts. And then they go, "Oh, because if you're not living like in the trendy sections,
Right.
the neighborhoods, it's like you're not really here." And I think the opposite. I'm like, well, you're not really here
Yeah,
because you live.
exactly.
It's funny how different people react to different things. But I mean, I like when I miss the food. I can go to a restaurant that serves eggs Benedict or whatever, but I prefer to eat at home. Actually, never even mind eating out. So
But I found, and I'm sure it's completely different there. I can't find any food that is similar to what is served in the U.S. They
mm,
try, but everything's
yeah,
different. It's no different than you would never find authentic Vietnamese food in the U.S. It's
yeah,
just
it's true.
everything's adjusted to
Yeah,
what the people
what they can
here
find. Yeah,
like and what they have access to. So I
yes.
don't even bother.
I,
I mean, I have tried it, and I've even tried making it, but I can't source the ingredients. Making it so I can
yeah,
let the local friends try what
right.
authentic American food tastes like.
Yeah.
But I gave up on that. I said, I'd like to reciprocate and also let you try these foods, but it's not working. And for me to make
Yeah.
something that's not like it tastes, then all I'm doing is making you food. There's no story
Yeah.
behind. I'm making you something that doesn't taste like how we make it. So it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So I gave up on that.
Now,
I gave up on that.
I don't blame you. It's like, yeah, they politely eat it and and then go, oh yeah,
Well, yeah,
that doesn't
exactly.
taste
I was going to make
good.
lasagna, and then I couldn't find the right ingredients to make it taste the right way. And then I made some desserts, and they don't like sweet cake here, so
Yeah.
exactly they're like, this is way too sweet. But it was just normal cake for what
Yeah.
we're used to. But
Yeah,
I
exactly.
realized, okay, this is not. I'm here to learn your culture. You could care
Yeah.
less. You know,
But
you
yeah.
are still here because you don't want to learn the culture. So I was forcing it on them, and that was
Yeah.
unnecessary.
Yeah.
I,
Now, talk to me about the cost of living in Vietnam. I mean, I've heard that it's really low. Like for a single guy like you, what is your approximate cost of living?
so the maximum I've spent was $650 a month, and
Whoa.
that was when I
Does
bought.
that include rent?
That includes rent, and that's when I bought. That was the same month I bought a freezer, a standing freezer,
Oh my
and a
God.
an oven. But it also includes my monthly travel. So that is total for everything I do. Now,
$650 a
650.
month.
So I don't live in the expat area. If I did,
Yeah.
my costs would be much higher.
Yeah.
But that includes, so if I fly to the other end of the country, unless it's some sort of holiday or something, it's going to be $35. Um, Hotels, I can get 3, 4 star hotel, 10, $15 a night.
Jesus.
And
So you're not suffering. You're not hurting for any 600 and now I just want to make sure that you said that right. And
$650 a month USD a month, but that included the month that I bought a freezer and a little oven. That was
wow.
so I found out because I don't.
What about electricity? What about utilities? I mean, $650 a month.
I
And that includes transportation and everything.
Yes, that includes everything. The apartment's 195, I think, 195 a month. So that's the most
And
expensive.
you're not sharing.
No, no, no. That's just for me.
Wow.
That's just for me. Um,
Wow.
but think about travel. I explore at least once a month. So that would be, um, if I really push the envelope, $80.
Mhm.
If I really
Wow.
push the envelope,
Wow. That is just amazing to me because once again, like we were saying back then, people think it's so expensive living outside of the country because I think we're conditioned and from what we see or all we see in the US tells you that, I mean, everybody moves to Mexico for the most part. Yeah,
Right.
it's closer to the US. But when they see that, you know, we spend one quarter of what we used to spend, even less than a quarter of what we used to spend, like in Texas and California, here. And but this just blows me away because we've all heard the $500 a month in Chiang Mai bullshit. Sorry, I didn't. And it's like, yeah, if you share a bathroom, if you like, there are all these things that come with it that they don't say because obviously everybody wants to tell you the good stuff and nobody tells you the bad stuff about living there and how much it really costs them. But you're saying to eat, to do everything for a month and travel costs you $650 a month. I mean, how is that not helping somebody that say has college debt and all that stuff to like save a little bit of money? Like, are you able to save too, or
Yeah,
or
of
no?
course,
Like,
because I work. But and let me be clear, because also don't want to mislead you. I do have a studio apartment, but it's bigger
okay,
than studios in New York,
yeah, but it's still you. It's still just you.
and it's I don't want to say modern, but it's newer than any of the apartments I know of besides new construction in New York. So it's not
Yeah, can
dated,
you
it's not
imagine?
old, it's elevator building. Um, and it's in one of the nicest neighborhoods in Hanoi. So just to be
Wow.
clear,
Yeah.
um, I'm not having a tough time. it's,
Oh, no,
it's
I mean, yeah, but I mean, you are living like someone should. I mean, it's not like, let's say it's not like you were in Manhattan to compare. It's not like you're in Manhattan. You're in, you know, the Queens or Brooklyn, right? Or you're saying the standard, of course, everywhere is going to be a difference. If you choose to live in the expat area, you can definitely, you can go as high as you want,
right,
triple
right.
what you're paying, but you're in a place that works for you, that is nice, that you're not hurting for anything, and you can live on this amount, which is fantastic.
It's
And
Yeah, I don't think people realize you can spend $1.50, sometimes 50 cents on dinner. Um, I took so during COVID, I tried to limit my flying, and I would
yeah.
but I would still do my traveling once a month, and I would take the equivalent of an Uber. So sometimes that got a little pricey, but you
Yeah.
can go 3.5 hours in the equivalent of an Uber called a Grab, and
Hmm.
it can still be like $40.
Wow.
In New York, I would take an Uber from Manhattan to Brooklyn, and it would be 65 just for just
Imagine
just
just to
one
get
little
there.
trip. Yeah, just say a 25-minute drive, or sometimes 35. In New York City, it
Wow.
would cost me $65, and here I can go hours,
Yeah.
hours.
On the same amount of money or
So
less.
I would, yeah, because I would still want to go somewhere. And I'd want to be on the safe side, so I would take a private car, but it's
Hmm.
an Uber essentially.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it would always be under $50,
Wow.
always. Right, 3.5
Speaking of
hours.
COVID, how was that? Like, what, you were obviously there when this whole thing started. How did that actually go? Like when COVID started, did you feel stuck?
I was in New York City. The
Ah,
second it started to become a problem, I was there visiting,
okay.
and it was right at that point. I think the end of February, maybe beginning of March, and it was they were just starting to have travel restrictions.
Uh-huh.
So I got messages saying it looks like they're going to stop letting people into Vietnam.
Hmm.
So I was originally planning on going down to Virginia, et cetera. Um, I left where I was. I was in a restaurant. I went straight to the airport and flew straight back to Vietnam. And they were taking it very seriously
Yeah.
because they experienced the bird flu here.
Hmm.
So they were really, really strict in the beginning.
Yeah.
But they wear masks anyway. It's part of the
Yeah.
culture.
Exactly.
So it wasn't that big of a deal, but they were closing businesses. At that point, they still thought foreigners were bringing it in, which they were, but they were, it's a communist country, so
Yeah.
things, you don't have the same rights. So they
Mhm.
were not serving or allowing foreign customers at
I heard that.
businesses.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that first night back, my apartment, this is a different apartment. They kicked me out. They
Mm.
were surprised that I was there, and they gave me till the morning to leave because it's not that they
Afraid.
necessarily thought I had COVID, but they didn't want to deal with the repercussions from the city of having a foreigner stay there.
Yeah.
So it was shun the foreigners at that
Wow.
time. But they were doing what they needed to do
Yeah.
to
But where
survive.
did you end up? Where did you spend the next few days? Because it was probably difficult to find
Well,
room.
when I was deciding what I was going to do here in Vietnam,
Hmm. Hmm.
someone along the way had said, a lot of expats open hotels or hostels.
Hmm.
I opened a hostel,
Okay.
and then I opened a hotel, and then I opened
Okay.
a travel agency. So I
Okay.
quickly found how I could survive. I've
Yeah.
closed them since because of COVID.
Yeah.
But I went and I lived in the hotel. Is what I
Okay.
did. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
was
sure.
very fortunate that I could just up and go. I had whatever I had a place to stay.
Yeah.
You have a hotel, you have people to cook for you and clean for you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I did that, and then like I said, I closed the hotel and hostel with COVID. So
Yeah.
as I closed them one by one, waiting to see if borders were going to reopen, then I got in the apartment I'm in now.
Gotcha. Now, when you were doing this, and you were doing basically opposite whatever of what everybody else was doing. When this all came down, everybody was trying to get home. But I find it interesting that you considered Vietnam home because,
Yes.
everybody would have been happy to be in New York, but you were anxious to get back to Vietnam. So that says a little bit of something that you really do feel at home and you consider that someplace that is home to you.
Well, there's two parts of that, and one is yes, that's where I lived. So what was I going to do if they closed the borders? Where was I going to live? Was I going to then get an apartment or stay with friends? We didn't know what was
Hell
going on.
yes. I mean, like, I'll be your friend. You can freaking put me up for a while.
The other part was I did have the businesses.
Okay.
So, and the staff was really afraid.
Yeah.
They really didn't know what to do. And
Yeah, it was a
they were,
horrible time.
it was at that specific point, they were telling me that they had guests from China and the
Hmm.
police told them, that they had to leave.
Oh, wow.
So they weren't comfortable. They didn't know what to do, and we still had
Yeah.
reservations coming in, and they didn't know how to deal with all this. And so, as it unfolded minute by minute, literally, uh, the best choice was to come back and resolve all of
And
that
try
and
it
be
out.
there with them.
Gotcha.
But it was
Okay.
also going home. It was also going
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Now, the whole point of this podcast for because I tend to go up on I
home.
wanted to find food. Let's talk about food. I promise we'll talk about food. Now, tell me, like, you've had a background obviously in hospitality and you were used to. Uh,
Yes,
how did Vietnamese food come into the picture?
because I live here. I live here.
Ah. But you like cooking. You like
I went to culinary school. Uh,
okay,
so I have a degree in hospitality management. Like I said, I went to
gotcha.
school in the Carolinas. So I got that degree, and then I went on to get another degree in culinary arts from Johnson and Wales. The cooking is the same for
Yeah,
any country. It's going to be different ingredients. Yes, the process is different, but it's still food and heat,
hmm,
following instructions. So
yeah,
living here, I realize I have a different take on food because I
yeah,
understand the importance of food here.
hmm,
So living here, I decided at one point I wanted to open a restaurant here, but I didn't want to take that same business route. And in doing so, I was formulating recipes. And then it turned
Mm-hmm.
into a cookbook
Mm-hmm.
because I'm here. That's
Yeah.
part of it. And I thought it would tie nicely into finding some kind of voice to
Yeah.
inspire people to travel, tying the food
Nice.
together with the culture,
Yeah.
somehow
Yeah.
trying to reach a new audience or an audience in general and let them understand how much you can grow from traveling,
Yeah.
how much you can open your mind, and how important it is.
It's great because you had said when you originally left for Greece, the whole point of the travel, your theme was inspiration.
And it
And
worked.
now it's come right around. And here you finally did it.
Yeah,
Huh?
it's so important. It really is. And for someone to say, like we were talking about earlier, to have these excuses,
Mm-hmm.
you got to just let them go.
Yeah.
Why would you not? If someone says you will learn from so much from this, you will grow from this, and you'll understand people that much better. Why would you
Yeah.
not switch that vacation to a travel trip? Why would you not?
Exactly.
One time in your life, why would you not just try to travel by yourself?
Yeah. And I think it was different back then. Okay, I can understand if you're, saying, oh, then there was no YouTube, there wasn't social media, but now you see people doing it, and they come back, they've got stories to tell. You can see it being done by people every day in, day out. So it's like the excuses are getting really, really, really tiring.
And every time they say it to me, and I say those examples I gave you earlier, well, didn't you spend money on this new bag?
Uh-huh,
What,
uh-huh.
what are you getting out of
That
that
could get
handbag?
you.
What are you getting out of that? Can you really
A
afford it?
picture on Instagram. A picture on
Yeah,
Instagram.
can you really afford that car? I mean, could you have gotten one that was $1,000 cheaper? Okay.
Yeah.
So it is priorities, but it's
Yeah.
prioritized that way because they don't understand what they can get out of it.
Yeah.
Understandable, but if I can persuade at least one person,
Exactly. It'll be worth it.
it's so worth
Now
it.
your website, in case before I forget, paulbkennedy.com.
.com. Yes.
Paul B. Den, uh, paulbkennedy.com. Now, I gotta tell you, I've seen the website. There are tons of delicious looking food. So you combine your love for photography into this gorgeous pictures that look like you could just eat them off the website. So anybody listening, you gotta check out the website, especially if you love Vietnamese food. There are wonderful recipes there. And now tell me, you've got the book coming out. Tell me a little bit more about the book, the title, and when they'll be able to get it, and what else.
They'd have to go onto the website to sign up for me to let them know when it's going to be available. Right now we're looking at the end of 2022 just because of normal publishing
Uh huh.
issues. But I've got to give a little disclaimer. The recipes are not simple. They're
Mm.
not that simple. But part of
So
the
they're
learning
more for the
process was
advanced.
if I want to provide somewhat authentic recipes, and I say somewhat meaning I tried to adjust them as much as possible, simplify them as much as
Mm-hmm.
possible, but
Mm-hmm.
still keeping their authenticity. They're not simple, but the book's not. It's only partly recipes, so it's 50 recipes,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest is about the culture, and not in some
Okay.
sort of history book way. It's just tidbits, just to
Would
pique
it
their
be?
interest, to pique
Oh,
their
cool.
interest into travel.
Ah, I see. I see what
So
you've done there. Because people love food and they can learn about the culture at the same time.
in a very light-hearted entertainment way. There's
Cool.
no heavy reading. It's perfect
Yeah.
for ADD like me. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just another. It's something. I had someone who said when they visited here, they thought they needed a machete to get to the hotel, to cut their way through the forest, the jungle.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me. I was like, what do we never did learn anything about Vietnam. We just
Yeah.
learned about the
No,
Vietnam War. And we didn't really learn
exactly.
about that or retain that. So
Yeah.
it's understandable that people do not understand that, say, Hanoi is a city the size of New York,
Yeah.
but it has a different culture and
Exactly.
it's manageable. So the goal was trying to combine the food with the tidbits of culture to try and pique someone's interest into hopefully traveling. Because when you do that, when you travel, you can understand people more.
Yes.
And every
And the
poor
name of
person,
this wonderful to be book?
if they don't change it, it's Vietnam food and culture. But once it's in the publisher's hands, it's in the publisher's hands. So
Yeah. So we'll be waiting for it. But would you say it would be a good idea to check some of the recipes that you've got
oh
on
yes,
site?
yes, of course.
Start with those, and then by the time the book comes out, you're ready for a little bit more complicated stuff.
Well, someone on Twitter had said they were afraid, not about my recipes, but they're afraid to try new recipes. And
just like travel, right?
well, yeah, they tie together. And I said, yes, exactly. It's just like travel. Have fun with any recipe. But what I want you to do is at least try.
Yes.
And realize that don't do it for a group of 8 make the dish for the first time, the group of 8 for a dinner party.
Yeah.
Just realize that this is food you're putting in your body. Take time, learn about it, understand about it. These dishes have been around for centuries. So why would you want to have a makeshift, say, no offense to 30-minute meals, but why would you want to rush through and take shortcuts and make a Vietnamese meal that's not authentic just because it saves time? At the end of the day, you're just making a dish. It's not Vietnamese. Yeah. So why not just spend one day and have fun with it? Drink some wine,
relax,
make some food. If you mess it up, you mess it up.
Exactly.
Just have fun with it and learn from it.
That's great. Now, Paul, I'm going to leave you with one last question, and I sort of know what your answer will be. If there was some advice you could give to someone, at home who's still contemplating all this, like what would you say to them?
Why would you not? Why would you not want to? Yeah. It's a crash course in empathy. Why would you not want to change for the better? Yeah. It's like saying, I don't want to read a book. Yeah. You only live
people
once.
do say that.
If you have these empty chapters in your book, and your chapters are going to be, I got married and I graduated and I had a kid, that's great. But there's so many more chapters you can put in that book.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show today, Paul. I know I kept you a little bit longer than I said I would.
I'm sorry.
It was fun.
I kept rambling.
No, I totally loved it. I just really did. And I'm so glad we got a chance to talk. And once again, everybody listening, please check out his website, paulbkennedy.com, and check out the recipes and have fun with it. Chill, try some of them, and hopefully sign up for the book because it's coming. And so you can learn a lot about Vietnam and about food.
Yes, definitely. Kim, it was a pleasure. Paul. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. So we'll see you later, everyone. Don't forget to tune in for the next podcast. Bye.